Hey guys, welcome back to We Watch Movie. I am Mike, and today we're taking a look at the Scream script, the original Scream script, Screamy Scramps, written by Kevin Williamson, and all the differences between what we got on screen and this draft of the script. And there's a lot of them. I mean, tiny nuances in most cases, but really fun stuff that we're going to get deep inside of. We're going to spread it, and we're going to the book goes like this. Scary Movie is the actual original title. I don't know if this is a working title, if they plan to do this at one point. I forget, and I forget a lot of things. Sometimes I forget to wipe. Just kidding. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention about this is the opening scene with Casey Becker. When you read it, it reads great. It's an amazing script, what Kevin Williamson did in this opening, but it's nothing like, even though the words are the same, the way you read it in your mind is nothing like what Drew Barrymore put on the screen. And what I mean by that is her vulnerability and just the way she just was genuinely freaked the fuck out in these scenes. She just added this weight to it. And though it reads great as well and it's a great script, it really makes you appreciate what she was doing on screen in that opening scene of Scream. Fucking so many S's. But one difference between that scene is when she's running out on the outside of the house and the killer comes inside, listed as man here at this point, says, "I can hear you. I know you're here," which is not something I remember from the movie. And that's really, for the most part, the only difference. Everything plays out. This whole script, shockingly, plays out on the nose as far as a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the moments, a lot of the direction of what the camera's going to do. It's really on the nose. And you could tell that Williamson and Craven were just fucking like this. They weren't fucking, you know what I mean? So fast forward to when Billy's in Sid's windowsill. It's really interesting when they show Billy and you read Billy. He could have very easily just been your generic jock or whatever from like every freaking movie like this you've seen. The way he's described as a star quarterback class president type of guy, you can tell that whoever cast this movie really played an important part about how great Scream was. From Drew Barrymore, this doesn't necessarily describe this character, you know what I mean? I wouldn't call Skeet a class act quarterback type. Sure, he could be, and I'm sure he's popular, but he was kind of dark, you know? He had a dark and sort of twisted side to him. He was I don't want to say like emo or like greaser or like something in between that, but he definitely wasn't like a, disturbing behavior or blue jacket type dude. And I love that. I feel like there's way more nuance to this character than just your typical, hey, I'm the jock guy. And speaking of casting, when they show Sidney Prescott for the first time in the script, I don't know if they had Neve Campbell pegged for this specific role already, but the way she's described in the script versus Neve Campbell on screen in that moment is just uncanny. Like, whoever casted this movie just blew it out of the water. I made that sound like a bad thing. She's sharp and clever with deep, lonely eyes. She's comfortable in a plain flannel nightgown. Like, why does that describe Sidney Prescott to a fucking T? There's an extra scene after that where Sidney wakes up that's not in the movie, and the radio's trying to tell her, hey, Casey and Steve Becker have been slaughtered to death, but she doesn't pay attention to it and just closes the radio. It's kind of like that Shaun of the Dead scene where he's walking by all the cues of what's happening, but he's just going to get his ice cream and soda. And then she jumps up, looks out the window just in time to see old Neil Prescott, Denim Dan, pulling out and going to the Marriott by the airport. And she tries to say bye to him, but he doesn't see her. And it is this weird, I get why that scene was in there, because it's this showing of like a teenager, like, you are alone now. You're in this house by yourself, and your dad didn't even fucking wave bye to you. One really interesting fact about this script is that we're not in Woodsboro. Oh no, we're in Bayboro, North Carolina. Bayboro. It reminds me of Wayne's World. It's like, we're in Delaware. And just another casting note, when they introduce just little nuances, like when they introduce Sheriff Burke for the first time. Remember when you see him on screen for the first time before I even show you this? And he's just got that handkerchief and he's sweating and his face is all red and he's like, fuck. Like, listen to this. Sheriff Burke, a round man in his 50s, wipes the stress from his face. Like, those just little nuanced things that just, god damn, that just matches up perfectly. So moving on to the fountain scene, where you've got the whole awesome, just multiple quotes coming from this scene, like the liver alone to it's called tact, you fuck rag, all that stuff in this moment. They describe Stu as Stuart when they first mention him. Going through the rest of the script, he'll be known as Stu throughout, but originally it's Stuart. And his last name's spelled Maker, M-A-K-E-R, rather than Mocker, M-A-C-H-E-R, which is just a weird little difference. But The script, you can tell, does not like Stu very much. They describe him as a Billy wannabe, almost the jock, almost handsome, almost cool. He tries way too hard. And as we go through, you'll notice through this that this script is not a fan of the character of Stu. And a lot of the classic lines that Stu did, whether they were like Lino-Rama thrown out from Craven or they were in a later version of the script or what, but there's multiple classic lines from Stu, specifically in the end scene, that seem like they were ad-libbed. Definitely his presence as an actor in that moment for sure expanded what this role was originally supposed to be. They described Randy as the fifth wheel, a tall and gangly kid with no such Billy-like aspirations. There's an extra movie reference line here from Randy where he says, "Remember in Jaws when they caught the wrong shark at first and Richard Dreyfuss cut it open to look for the body parts and all they found was a license plate and all this white milky goo?" And then Stu leans over and socks Randy in the arm and says, "You heard Billy. Shut the fuck up, kid." Another line that was not in the script, in the scene where they're at Dewey's house and Tatum's house and the caller calls Nev Campbell, she picks up the phone and he's like, "It's me. Looks like you fingered the wrong guy again." And I'm like, I hate it when I finger the wrong guy. But also the scene where Dewey walks in and picks up the phone and goes, "Hello." That's so hilarious. One of the best gags in the movie, not originally in this script. Now, they showed a bit of this next idea when they were in the movie, but it just seems a little bit more prevalent here. You know, when they're in the hallways and all the kids are running around with Ghostface on. She's like, "Stupidity leak," and all that stuff is going on, just being assholes. And this whole entire scene just reads just a little bit different to me. First off, when they're walking down the hallways and she's talking to Tatum, and Tatum's like, "You're at school now, you can calm down." And then Sid's like, "Yeah, but he promised he would be back. He could be here as well." You see a ghost face appear behind them and standing there watching them. And this is before the kids come running down the hallway. Ghostface appears several times in that hallway, and whether it's one of the kids or someone playing a prank or her psyche or what, he's there. And then from there you have the bathroom scene, which for the most part plays out the exact same way. And again, you could go either way with that. Was he actually there? Was it in her head? Was it a kid playing a prank on her? But after that scene, she runs into Principal Hembry's office. And this is right when he gets done with those kids, where he's like, "Your whole thieving, whoring generation makes me sick." Right when he's done with them, she bursts in the office and falls into Hembry's arms. And she's like, "He's here, he's here." And the next thing you know, Dewey's out in the car. They're radioing him and saying that it looks like some boys were teasing her, but Hembry's going to go ahead and shut down the school just in case. And it's weird because in my mind, it wasn't a direct correlation to that when you watch the movie. It was like, we're shutting school down for the day and there's going to be a curfew. But in this, it looks like everybody was like, "Thanks, Sydney, because of your bathroom freak out. You know, Hembry closed the school for the day," even though they think it was just some kids pranking you. There's an extra scene between Stu and Billy here, which is hilarious because someone calls someone a buttwort, and I really wish this was still in the movie. It says, "Billy, how'd you do?" And Stu's like, "Piece of cake, she'll be there." And he's like, "Thanks, buttwort, you did good." I just think, what the fuck? And then Stu actually asks him in that scene, he's like, "Hey, I'm just asking, man, why are you always at me?" And Billy says, "Because I'm trying to build your self-esteem. You're far too sensitive," which obviously leads later on to the whole, "I'm far too peer pressure. I'm far too sensitive." So I think maybe they took this out because it was hinting too much at what the reveal was ultimately going to be. But maybe it was the words buttwort. So after school's canceled and the curfew's enforced and Tatum talks Sid into going to the party, which, by the way, I just want to throw this out there. Tatum was sketch as fuck in this movie, right up into the point where she became a garage door ornament. I mean, from the start, when Sydney's alone in her house, she promises to be there at a certain time. She's late because she's picking up all the right moves cruise penis videos, and then she shows up right after the attack. She's the one who talks Sydney into going to Stu's house when it's probably the last place that she should be. She knew what times Casey Becker and Steve ate the dust. She's just a lot of questionable stuff going on between. She always seems to show up right after Ghostface attacks, specifically when Billy attacks her. But anyways, the scene where they're in the grocery store and they're buying chips and shit for the party, Ghostface's presence there is so much more prevalent. Like, I remember when they're talking on the porch, he's like walking in the woods or something. But here he's washing dishes. But in this scene, he's watching them through the windows of the store, and they show him multiple times. There's one point where they're talking about Billy's dick, and she pushes the cart away, and it actually runs into Ghostface standing in the parking lot, and he catches it, and neither of them look at him or whatever. So there's multiple scenes where he pops up originally in this script. While this Ghostface hanging around dialogue's going on, they're talking about sex between Sydney and Tatum, and it's just a really awkward conversation because she's like, you know, you had the original scene which is like, Billy and his penis don't deserve you. But then Sydney's like, what do you think about when you have sex with Stu? And by the way, Tatum dogs the shit out of Stu in this because she's like, well, there's not a lot of time to really get much thinking done. It happens so fast. But then she goes into this great Grant Godev from the oldest brother on Eight is Enough and how she would hum the theme song. And I don't know if that's even a real show or not. But I see why they took it out, because when she talks about that theme song later on, when Sid and Billy are having sex, she's humming the song in her own head too, and it's like, this is just fucking weird and awkward. Could you imagine if you're having sex with a girl for the first time, like you the whole virginity thing, and all of a sudden she's like, "I'll be there for you." Another fun thing, Randy definitely works at Blockbuster. The Blockbuster is the name of the video store in the script. You understand why they took that name out, but they also, in the script, at different times, they mention Kroger. When he's talking about when he finds the mask, and Dewey's like, in the movie, he's like, "You've got these at every Five and Dime in the state sheriff." In the movie, he's like, or in the script, he's like, "Got these at every Kroger and Walmart around town." And also, they mention Blockbuster like 100 times because that's actually where Randy works and has been fired from twice. But Randy shows up at the parties like, "I thought we'd make it a Blockbuster night," and he lets the video splatter across the kitchen counter. They all go looking at the movies, and that's kind of where the Jamie Lee Curtis conversation happens. In the scene where Dale and I always do this. I always say Dale and Gooey. When Gale and Dewey almost get hit by the car, there's actually no kissing moment between them. I guess they were just watching that scene happen when Dewey rolls on top of her, and they're like, "You could cut the sexual tension with a fucking butter knife. Let's just do it. Actually, you guys should just fuck right here." Another weird detail, they never actually mention a voice changer in the script. It's always just talking through the phone. So I'm not sure. I mean, they didn't have apps back then on the phone where you could just like download a voice modulator. But yeah, they would hold up the phone. Like when Stu was like, "Surprise, Sydney," or when later on, when she's like, "Let's call a little game called Guess How I'm Gonna Die." They were always just talking into the phone. There was never actually a voice changer device. So going to the end scene now, and this is where we start to get into the points where a lot of the great Stu one-liners were not in the original script. So when Billy turns to Stu with the knife, there is no "Get it up, baby, get it up." There's none of that here. Again, when Billy throws the phone at Stu, there's no "You hit me with the phone, dick." That's not in the script either. I could be wrong about this one, but I'm 90% sure that there's also no "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me." I'm pretty sure that's not there either, which are some of the greatest comedic moments of the entire movie. So maybe the biggest difference of the movie is coming up now. While Billy and Sydney are having their fist fight with the umbrella and all that shit going on, Randy sits up and he makes a comment about how, like, I hate, you know what I hate about horror movies is the final scene. It goes on and it gets so stupid. Right then, Stu comes flying at him, and Randy and Stu get in a full-on fist fight that goes on for a little while. I mean, it's not like Rowdy Roddy Piper and They Live, but it goes on for a good minute. And ultimately, it changes the whole dynamic about Stu's death. So when they're fighting, eventually, while Randy's trying to get away from Stu, he grabs a hold of this television set and pulls himself up, but he grabs a VCR, yanks on it, grips it with his hands, bringing it around with force, crashing the VCR onto Stu's head, and Stu drops. Right then, Stu and Billy are laying head to head next to each other on the floor like the lovers they were. And Stu's death is completely different in this scene. When Randy does the whole thing careful, the killer's always got one left in him or whatever, Sydney goes, not this time, grabs the gun, puts her foot on Stu's chest, and shoots Stu in the head. In the forehead, a clean and perfect shot. She then does the same thing with Billy, but of course he gets his scene where he opens his mouth and blood comes out. Now, this is very important to me, and I know you're thinking it, and I'm fucking thinking it, and you know I'm fucking thinking it. But Stu, that would have been a very obvious death, right? Clean shot, middle of the forehead, goner, right? They changed that. Why? Maybe it's because they wanted Stu to fucking live, y'all. Maybe it's because, did I just say y'all? Maybe it's because, just like with Dewey, where he dies originally in this script, they were going to have him die, but they just loved David Arquette and the character, and they were smart enough to leave him around, unlike Scream fucking 5. Calm yourself, child. Wrong kid died. But yeah, I mean, all I'm going to say is they took a for sure death, and they changed it to the back door's open. Because Stu fucking lives. Oh, and this is probably the worst difference. Just, I cannot in my mind's eye imagine this scene happening. It makes me laugh. But so when Sydney shoots Stu, you know, she goes, "This is for my mom, asshole." Cool, right? That makes sense. But then when she goes to shoot Billy, She goes, and this Billy Stud Bucket is for having an incredibly small weenie. Just imagine Nev Campbell being like, and this Billy Stud Bucket is for having an incredibly small weenie. In that fucking moment, weenie? She could have said dick. She said weenie. What the fuck? And also the ending shot when they pull out, the ending shot as the camera pulls out is totally different. Instead of that badass shot of Stu's amazing house and the sirens and all that, and Gail Weathers signing off, it's just kind of her in there with the camera, just like watching them, and it's just kind of awkward. And also Randy picks up Sydney in this scene. He's like, "Hey, I know it's the wrong moment. Would you want to go to a movie?" And she's like, "Only if it's a Meg Ryan movie." And like this was probably an amazing choice to change it to what they changed it to. But all in all, man, like you gotta give Kevin Williamson all the credit in the world. This script is amazing. So much of it is so tight with exactly what Wes Craven filmed in the movie. From little looks here and there, nuances. It was a blast to read. I mean, I went through it just in one sitting pretty much. It was crazy. And I usually only read shampoo bottles when I'm pooping, and I left my phone in the laundry room. But you can just go right through this thing, and it's such a great read, such great memories, and it's really fascinating. It adds a whole new layer to the movie. So I definitely recommend checking it out. You can Google it and find it pretty much anywhere. And yeah, that's every difference or interesting thing I found between the Scary Movie script and the Scream that we got in theaters. And by the way, if you like videos like this, we're constantly covering Scream, Halloween, all of it. So please do me a favor, click the subscribe button and the bell, because YouTube usually doesn't show our stuff because we say things like cock, balls, fart, fuck. So yeah, so please set up the notifications so that you know when we do live streams as well. We do really fun live streams, and we have a blasty blast talking about all this kind of stuff. And love your all's fucking faces. I hope you guys have an amazing day.
Hello, listener. Do you like scary movies? What's your favorite scary movie? Well, Jay and Mike like scary movies too. You should go and subscribe to their podcast, We Watched a Movie. Because if you don't, I'll gut you like a... Well, I think you get the idea. Enjoy yourselves while you still can.